What do we get when we combine a bottle full of Vicodin pills, a 25-kilogram weight plate to the face, and a room full of psychotic dancers? We're about to find out when we go deep and talk about Smile 2.
Introducing the Deep Voice.
Smile 2 is, of course, the sequel to 2022's Smile, although I do feel that this is a level above in terms of quality. Now, this film was written and directed by Parker Finn, and it stars Naomi Scott, amongst others, but they have very small roles. So, the premise of this film is that a pop singer has had a recent traumatic event happen in her life, which she hasn't fully recovered from yet, and she has almost ostracized herself and pushed loved ones and friends away because she's dealing with this internal struggle. This fits in very well with the main concept of the first film, if you've seen it, wherein people who have some kind of mental issues already can easily be manipulated by this entity, whether you want to see it as a demon or a deity. They are almost possessed by something, whatever it is. And I think the premise of this film fits with that very well. And there are psychological thriller aspects to this film that weren't present in the first. And I think that's what would, for me, elevate it beyond the first film. I think if you want something with a bit more thought to it, a bit more intelligence in terms of the writing, then you can find that here. I wouldn't say it's a top tier film in terms of writing or premise, but I would say if you enjoyed the first one, you should enjoy this one. I enjoyed it more. Now, Naomi Scott's performance in this film was great. She had to do many things here with almost different aspects of her personality being in the limelight at different times. So she has to show an array of emotions ranging from sadness and despair to horror, and also to almost just a breakdown, a mental breakdown. And this film was really well shot. I don't want to spoil too many things here, but there are a lot of shots that are filmed upside down. Now, one may initially think that this is just a design choice to bring out a sense of unease in the audience, and I feel like these shots do that, and in other films also work quite well. However, without spoiling things, in this film, it's very indicative of some of the past trauma she's experienced. So the perspective actually mirrors what may have happened in the past. So I think this was a really cool aspect to the way that scenes are shot. There was a scene that was upside down. It floats through New York City, and the music that accompanied it in this scene was great. The music was almost, synthesizer, synthwave style. It's becoming very popular with horror films now. I think it suited most of the scenes here great. But I think if you break this film down, it's a battle with oneself. So an internal struggle, and it's who will come out on top in this internal struggle. Now, obviously, if you've seen the first film, and you probably know what to expect, you have to go into the paranormal side as well. Personally, I found the psychological thriller side more enthralling, but the paranormal aspects were well done, I thought. The visual effects, great. Some of them, maybe a bit too much CGI, but obviously when you're manipulating a face into a smile that isn't possible, then essentially the way you're going to do that is CGI. So there were quite a few kills in this film, and those kills were well done with decent prop design and decent practical effects for those. I was reminded very much of Black Swan in terms of the psychological aspect of this film. The pressure to perform from those around you while you're in the midst of, you know, a snowballing breakdown in mental terms. Some of the scenes were quite shocking. I wouldn't say this is a grotesque film. There was blood, there were some scenes that were a little bit hard to watch, but nothing out of the ordinary in terms of the horror genre. But for me personally, this film was, I would say it was above average. I wouldn't say it was a great film. I would say the acting was top tier, very good. Naomi Scott was great in this film. I couldn't fault her in any of the scenes that were on display here. The surrounding cast did their job. Nobody stood out as, you know, maybe overacting or being too dramatic or theatre-like. It was well-grounded and realistic. The music, good. The cinematography, great. In terms of horror films of 2024, this wasn't one of my favourites. I think it's a good film. I still think we're on that upwards curve that I always say in terms of horror films coming out. I think these, as we call elevated horror films, we're on a roll right now, and I think this goes into that tier as well. However, this film for me was good. If I was to give it a numeric value, which as we know, nobody really cares, I would probably say it was a 7 out of 10. To contrast that, I would say The Substance was a 10 out of 10, and films of recent times like Barbarian, etc., they would easily be an 8 or 9 for me. So it's maybe the next tier down. The entity is well portrayed in this film. I would say that the ending will be very divisive. However, I understand it because this ending is the only one a studio would really have accepted. I'll leave it at that because I don't want to spoil anything, but there's my cat in the background. But the ending, it may be a little bit rushed. I don't mind it. I think it was, you know, it was okay. So in general for this film, go and watch it. You'll enjoy it, especially if you watch the first one. I think it's an upgrade on the first film. And I think you will find good entertainment value here. I did have 2 girls in front of me who were screaming quite often, which kept taking me out of the film a little bit. So for me personally, I wasn't entirely immersed for the entirety of the run length. However, I thoroughly enjoyed this film, and it's worth a watch going towards Halloween. Go and see it.